I don't think healing is about fixing something broken. I really believe that healing happens in the context of a relationship where we develop safety and trust, and that healing may not always be getting rid of the discomfort.
Mm.
It can be an invitation to learn how to be with it differently.
Mhm.
And when we slow down enough to really be present with that, finding the back of my chair and feeling the support of the chair, it's like it tantalizes the sensation of our aliveness.
Mm.
And
Mm.
in that aliveness, there's so much to connect us to. And then that gets shared.
Aliveness is presence.
Yes, yes, yes.
So it sounds to me then the way to come back to that, to reclaim that, is to slow down and to begin to get present to our lives, to the moment, to our bodies. Present.
Absolutely. So I really want your listeners to know that even little steps into the discomfort of slowing down is the beginning of the process.
Kate, it's such an honor to have you here. I have to say, like, you as my somatics therapist and having been my mentor in attachment and somatics, this really feels full circle. So I just want to take a moment to honor you and your 50 years of legacy and just being so revered as such a skilled practitioner, but gem of a human being. And I'm just so grateful to spend this time together. So welcome to Fire and Soul.
Thank you. It's great to be here, to be, visiting a part of you that I don't always see as well. What fun to just arrive in your circle. I appreciate being welcomed.
Oh. You know
And
what's so cool is I'm just picking up on how many times we've sat here now, probably well over a dozen, right? Where I'm in this room and we're on a Zoom and you're having me, get connected to my body, sit in the chair, sit back, notice the four walls, the ceiling, the floor. Like, I feel like we're in a really special container as we start this conversation and feels really good and yeah, pretty juicy. So for those who aren't as familiar with you as I am, you've 5+ decades in experience of a counselor, storyteller, artist, somatic psychotherapist, and so much more. So wherever you want to share about your background and what brought you into the work that makes you feel most alive today.
all right. Well, 50 years is a lot to, so we're going to skip and do a little journey that way. I started out 23 years of ballet dancing, minored in dance, majored in art in my undergraduate years, and then, had children, went back. I have two masters, a master's in special ed, master's in counseling, and I also taught in a Waldorf school, which is a creative embodied practice. I have enjoyed working with families almost all my life. Started in the inner city of Houston, have worked in the ghetto, have worked with very affluent families, have worked in, I guess, 9 countries now. I have students all over the world, teach online, and then I have spent time traveling, doing the same thing, working with practitioners. So that's a real quick jump through the hoops. What really brings me aliveness now is to be with families and individuals who are exploring transitions and changes across generations, who are trying to adapt to the changes in culture that we see. We have a lot of intensity, we have a lot of extremism happening. And that brings me to using my skills around attachment, which means how we connect,
Mm.
and somatics, which is our living wholeness, talks about our bodies, how we embody who we are. And and then my background as a trauma specialist. So for me, I weave all that into being really present with the individual or the family in such a way that I want them to develop some curiosity,
Mm.
agency to be with something that's uncomfortable. I don't think healing is about fixing something broken. I really believe that healing happens in the context of a relationship where we develop safety and trust, and that healing may not always be getting rid of the discomfort.
Mm,
It can be an invitation to learn how to be with it differently. And in that way, we can explore all kinds of things, whether the family is dealing with an emerging adult age 18 to 28 that has failure to launch, is sitting gaming, is it has no sense of purpose, is, that age group, or whether they're trying to parent young people in an age where the kids are attached to technology and they're not outside learning how to build a fire, learning how to sew, learning how to cook. They're not really out there in learning how to be a human and a citizen of the planet.
mhm,
That could be part of my job. Or it could be I'm working with, individuals in their 40s and 50s trying to discover who am I now? I've built this family, I've built my career, I've built my practice, but I'm floating. I don't have a real sense of my own spirituality. I don't have a sense of my second half of life. What does that mean? What does legacy mean? What
mm,
does it mean for me to know that I can be a part of the planetary race, a citizen of the planet? What does that mean? Now, we
mhm,
don't think about that till we're actually probably close to 50 because we're really busy. We're just really busy. So, part of my work then is to work with a whole family, as an example, people in their 80s who want to really help the middle generation, help the younger generation to find meaning, purpose, legacy. And that really means looking at values and understanding identity formation. And all of those things can easily be bypassed and not live in the body. They
mm,
can end up being strategies where we build concepts and we take those concepts into steps, and that's all cognitive and very helpful. But if those things don't live in the body, they're not going to be realized in the same way. And so for me, it's about looking at value, clarification, character, integrity, responsibility. What does it mean to arrive at a citizen of the planet,
mm,
not just a consuming individual trying to rise in their status, owning more things, creating more power positions, and proving that they are something that is better than somebody else? In order to really develop as a soul and leave something behind, we want to know what is the actual experience of the essence of who we are inside form,
mm, mm,
inside the proximity between you and me, and inside sensation, gesture, posture,
mm,
right? What does that tell us? And how do we connect and build connection that is truly embodied rather than forced through consumerism or forced through status building or wealth building? I'm not saying that those other things aren't part of being human. I'm just curious about what happens when we slow down and we are at home with ourselves.
mm. Yeah, beautifully put. And what a way to open. Thank you for all of that. It was so cool because as you were speaking, I would have a question and then like 30 seconds later you would answer it because I know that a lot of people do seem to be coming to somatics work, for example, more so now because I'm here. So if I'm here, then others are new like me. And we're in the category of one of the sort of demographics that you just mentioned, a woman in her 50s kind of achieved the things, had the status, had the drive. Then a big shift happened for me, and it was like, well, who am I really, and what is this all about? And then I no longer cared about those things, but yet those things still matter. It's not that I don't want to experience being able to make an impact and to create change, but not at the cost of selling out on myself, my soul, or not experiencing the wholeness of myself. And quite frankly, I didn't even really know what that meant until I was drawn to the work that you and your son will do and found myself in this space. But it also came because I was meeting these shadowy parts of myself over and over and over again, and they were starting to accelerate in these initiatory times that humanity is in. And I couldn't run anymore. I couldn't suppress, I couldn't deny. And it makes me a little emotional thinking about it because it was like, I need help. And so there were certainly technologies like the gene keys that have been extremely helpful for me. But where the gene keys left off was, how do I feel this though? How can I experience these frequencies of shadow, gift, and city in the language of the gene keys, which a lot of our listeners know? What does that mean? How do I know? And then somatics brought me home to my body. So I think I'd like to spend a little more time here on for those that are brand new to the idea of embodiment in the ways that you're referring, or what does coming home to the body mean? I know that you know what I'm trying to say because there are so many people that I know that are so smart, so accomplished, so together, and they have no interest in this work, but yet it's so apparent how much we all need it. And yet there is a big sort of swath of people coming into it. So somewhere in there is a question of, can we unpack a little bit more about what somatics is and how to begin to recognize it as someone who's brand new to the idea?
Well, let's just jump in, shall
Okay.
we?
Hmm.
Okay. So, you know, let's take somatics, which is our living wholeness, and let's apply it to how it shows up in relationships. So, in a relationship, either a relationship with myself, my relationship with you, my relationship with spending and shopping, my relationship with my career, my identity, those are all relationships. If I am spending most of my time in my thinking and in creating the story or the narrative about who I want to be, who I am, and what you're saying and who you are, and I want to impress you, or I want to lead and guide you to want something I want, all of that is cognitive, right? What we miss are all the cues that the body gives us. So we really miss the gesture, the posture, the proximity of how close or how far I am. And in in another way, just in terms of my own path, I'm just going to add a little story here. In
Please
my own,
do.
okay, so in my own path, I would work 13-hour days. I would see one after another person with no space in between, five or 6 days a week.
Mm,
Well, did I really have any idea how I even felt? No, not really. I mean, I didn't even stop for lunch.
mm,
And I just thought, "Ugh, I mean, I'm making money. I'm really successful. I feel great. I love what I do." I was unaware of how disembodied I was.
mhm,
And I thought, oh, well, I'll just take this class and see what this is about. So I get into this class called, you know, somatic experiencing. And oh my goodness, was I surprised. So it really challenged my whole relationship with myself. Here I had a relationship with ideas and
mm,
with other people's problems.
mhm,
But did I really have one with myself and with my body? No. And so as I began to explore that, I realized the potency, the true potency of
mhm.
slowing down, being present, finding the back of my chair and feeling the support of the chair.
Why does that matter, Kate?
Well, then when I am sitting with you, I feel my own self present in a grounded, relaxed way.
Mhm.
And when I speak to you, it comes from my heart center rather than the fast-paced mind that's trying to think up what you're going to ask me next so that I already have an answer prepared. Instead, I'm really present and I'm speaking from my heart about what's arriving inside me right now without the anxiety of trying to prove something or figure out what you're going to say next.
Yeah.
I can take those pauses and allow my thinking to have the space to inform what I want to say next. And it gives me the pauses to really listen to you and to listen to not just your words, but how your body communicates to me, the sparkle in your eye, that what just happened in your smile.
Mhm.
Hey, and then the way your breath moved right there, and the little bit of emotion that I caught where your ears just pulled up just a little bit.
Your
Mm.
tracking is phenomenal.
Right.
Whew.
So being able to do that allows me to be present with your energy and all the things that maybe you weren't even wanting to share, but your body is sharing with
Yeah.
me. Now, I wouldn't have to identify that, but to
Mhm.
give your listeners an idea of what I'm doing when I'm with someone is that I want to be with all of them.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
want to be available with all of who I am.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Thank you for that. I have shared the sitting back in the chair with all of my private clients so far. Some not as comfortable with it as others. Um, but for me, it's been a game changer. And you offered that in our very first session. And I did not get that, like every chair I've ever sat in my life, whether it was at a dinner table, a kitchen table, someone's outdoor patio furniture, I was on the edge of the seat leaning forward.
Yeah, yeah.
And how that felt in my body, I was never present or relaxed or grounded. And so just to come back and let the chair actually hold me is a shift that's subtle but real. And I know there's so much more because this is just the very beginning of my journey. But just that alone was so profound, in that I can actually connect with you versus, and for those of you watching, I'm leaning forward, right? And this is how I used to run every single podcast and every single coaching call and every dinner party and every date. And it could be exhausting. And I was
Well,
exhausted.
not only that, Michelle, what you're doing when you sit forward and you lean in, you're falling into somebody else's energy field, but you're also really constricting all your butt muscles and your core to hold yourself together.
Yep.
And we have to hold ourselves together and hold together our story and how we present ourselves and what somebody else thinks about us. Think of that work that we're doing to really contain all of ourselves. Well, what happens if we just sit back a little, take a breath, find our sit bones, wiggle
Mm-hmm.
the butt, and sit down into the chair. Feel the support of the back.
Mm-hmm.
Our backbone is designed to support us. And when we allow ourselves to have resources like the back of the chair, we can relax into who we are in an embodied way. We're out of the head space. We're down into our main center, our heart center, our breath center, our core, that's hatha for some. It is the core, it's the center of our life force.
Mm-hmm.
Our life force is not the center up here. This might be where intuition is, the between the eyes, but down here is the center of our life force.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we practice that, uh, It changes our relationship with self and other.
What about those that I actually know and I can think of right now in my mind that they've always sat back, but they might occur really rigid or defended? I'm just thinking of a few
That's true.
moments. Okay, so I don't know much about that and the science of it, but
Mhm,
they're
mhm,
very polished
mhm,
and contrived, I would say. So it
mhm.
doesn't feel as open.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, would they not be leaning back and maybe their exercise would be to come forward, or would there be something else?
No, what I would say is that you're talking about somebody who is sort of a tough, generous the character traits that we talk about in
Yeah.
class, where they have walls that really serve them very well. It's a protective part of their system. It is almost the opposite from those of us who are more anxiously leaning in, right? They're going to hold back and have that wall.
Mhm.
And both are ways to create the defenses that we need. When I talk about attachment and teach, I teach both, defensive system, how it accommodates danger and safety signals inside a relationship. So there's nothing wrong with having defenses. It's can we modulate those defenses so that we can invite some vulnerability when it's safe to do so. So when somebody has pretty rigid way of holding themselves in a relationship, I want to first give permission to have those kind of defenses before I invite a shift. And then what I
Mm.
might do is have them hold a pillow and see if the pillow helps them relax their core a little bit and
Mm.
still have the defense of a barrier,
Mhm.
but they relax their core.
So interesting because as I discovered in our training, our formal training, although I continue my private work with you, uh, I am, as what we call a disorganized, right? So I can swap just based on whatever I am needing, these brilliant strategies and adaptations that I have developed over the years to be either in the anxious pattern or the avoidant pattern. And it can feel a little chaotic, but yet these anchoring resources have been so helpful. So sometimes it's about leaning back and allowing the chair to hold me. Other times the pillow and holding a big, comfy, cozy pillow in front of my core. I never knew that that would be so what's the word that I'm looking for? Comforting. And that it
Yes.
would allow me to relax. And I actually used it. You know that I went into a medicine journey with friends. I wasn't guiding it. I was a participant amongst peers. I'm not their guide. I'm not their coach. I'm not the leader. I'm not the one in control. And it was so cool to show up in this space. We've done many of these. But I noticed in our closing circle the next morning, where it was a very vulnerable, tender hearted, open conversation. I was like, what's missing? Why am I not completely at ease right now? And I was like, I need a pillow.
Yeah.
And so I just went and got a pillow and I put it around me and then I laid down and it was like, body hugging the pillow. And I was like, oh, now why did that matter to me with friends that I love and feel comfortable with? Like just based on your obvious, your expertise.
Well, the simple answer is that you are creating containment with the back of the chair being holding your back and
Mhm.
the pillow holding your front. So I talk about the container as a way of having personal boundaries.
Yeah.
And if you're inside a container, you can go, ah, you can really release because you have this container. We start out that way. We're in a mother's womb, right? Until the container is too tight and we have to come forth. Well, we like to create that sense of protection in multiple ways. And one of those ways is to have those pillows all the way around, or like the back of the chair and a pillow in the front. And by doing that, we feel the edges. And when you can have a visceral, concrete feeling of your edges, you know where you end and the world begins. You have a stop place, literally a stop place. And as soon as you have that stop place, you can yield. You can yield. But you can't really yield if you just go on forever and ever, and there's no end, there's no boundary, there's no edge. And so by having a pillow in the back of the chair, now I have an edge. I can go, oh, I can breathe because I know I can stop. I'm enough, right? And when I know there's enough space for me and I'm safely held, then I can relax within that. And that's a yield. That's a yield.
Yeah, it's incredible. And it's so interesting until we actually try these things on and notice how our body instantly will communicate a resonance.
Mhm.
Otherwise it just seems too simple. It's like, how in the world could putting a pillow make a difference? And I remember you teaching that right away in the group dynamic, and I thought, I don't think so. Right? The skeptic in me of like, and then I tried it and I was like, oh. Yeah. So between the both and whatever I need, and sometimes I need to be in the chair leaning back with the pillow in front. And, it's not always appropriate, like on a Zoom with a coaching client or, running a podcast. But most other times in my life it is. And I'm also finding that I have agency when I'm running a podcast. So I'm practicing with you right now that I can lean back and trust that you'll still hear me, that we still get to connect, that I haven't lost that just because I'm not leaning in and on the edge of the seat. It's actually creating more connection inside our energies now meeting.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes, yes, exactly. Exactly. And there's just this other piece of attunement that can happen when the resonance in the field between us, right, has edges, boundaries inside a relationship.
Oh, so
Allow us
true.
to know where I and you begin. And
Mm,
and in that way inside a relationship, then I can pay attention to when I'm falling into you or
mm.
when you're falling into me. And I can find a way to back a little bit and to feel the space, that proximity, and I can notice what else I might need, that kind of feedback, neurofeedback that the pillow or the chair gives me, or a weighted vest, a little weighted thing that I put in my lap. Nobody sees when I'm on Zoom. I have a bunch of them. Well, they're all the way over there in the room, but children can sleep better with them when we have something in the external. It helps us concretize a concept.
Hmm.
And so in relationships, people are often very unaware of their sensory needs. They're aware of their thoughts and their beliefs, but not often of their sensory needs.
And I want to speak to that because you or Will offered up a stat that pretty much blew me away. And it was something along the lines of 80% of, okay, can you share that stat?
Yeah, yeah. 80% of our processing comes from our sensory systems. 20% comes from our thinking. So when people say, oh, just mind over matter, we laugh at that because think of how many times you've tried to stop something. In fact, more you try to stop something, the more you think about it
Hmm.
and are tempted to do it. So it can't be about that 20% about what your mind's telling you. It really is, we have to come to terms with our physiology. We really
Mm.
have to listen. And we don't. As humans, we weren't taught to. We were taught to listen to thoughts, right? And so it's a different way of working with thoughts and sensory perception together. We want to bring them together into resonance, yeah, to that field that creates the symphony. Otherwise it's just noise. It's just noise. So if you think about particles of sound, when you bring them together and they have that beautiful resonance,
Hmm.
they're aligned,
Hmm.
yeah?
Hmm.
But if they're not, it's noise.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because coming from the transformation space and being pretty high profile and very high performance and loving the identity around that, because I didn't know any better, right? It got me a lot. And I'm not mad at that past. I just can't live that way anymore. But we were taught, it was drilled into us that it's 80% mindset and 20% mechanics, right? And it's neither. It's absolutely neither. But I can see the drive and I can see the reasons for the drive that we'll go into another time when you join me again, because I'd like to revisit into the deepening as I'm waking down to myself and we continue our beautiful work together, more about what that embodied somatics is. But I actually want to take a moment to, speaking of the drive and the achievement and the status of a 50 something year old woman. In one of our first sessions, I had shared with you that I was really proud of this creative project that I had off to Gaia the network. And it's still there, by the way. It's not a yes or a no yet. It's just still moving through the process. But I worked really hard on bringing it to life. It felt like it came through me, and it was like the culmination of the last 15 years of my life. And I was like, this is it. And it was basically sitting down with the world's most trusted spiritual teachers and leaders and talking about their offerings, their gifts, their tools, their products in sort of like a like Super Soul Sunday, intimate living room style conversation of like really getting into the heart of these products. And I would be the host and the producer and the whole thing. And it's called Sacred Exchange. I'm not gonna lie, like it may go and it may not. But I remember and I was like, this is not about sales, it's not manipulation. It's so, so sincere. And I remember you saying, that sounds great. And it'd be amazing. And I'm probably paraphrasing. If you could like also move people off of consumerism into creation, and you use that term. And I was like, oh, but it kind of is. And we're going to move them from insight to embodiment. And anyway, that was it. We had our session. 3 days later, it's 6 a.m. and I'm in one of my early phone calls with one of my best friends, Jocelyn Rayburn, who was just on this show. And I'm sharing the idea, and I'm also like, what else is kind of brewing in my life? She goes, I would actually love for you to join me in a reimagining of a product that I love, but that needs you. And it's called Consumer to Creator. And I was like, wait, what? And I got the chills. I shared with her that you had just offered that. And something about it, we had like all these other confirmations inside our like 2 hour morning chat. And I was like, I'm supposed to join you on this. And I'm getting the chills as I say it because within 7 days, we had a podcast, we had a suite of offerings that get people to declutter their life, to make space so they can tune in. And it's not about creating a course or a program or a podcast. It's maybe creating a playlist or a garden or a painting or a conversation that needs to be had or a new boundary that wants to be created, but becoming the creator of our reality on the inside so that we can become a creator on the outside that is in service to the whole. And so that whole thing now is fully on its way, and it feels so expansive and it feels so intimate. It feels so good. But I also know that it speaks to what's most alive in you right now. And so let's just pick up right there with whatever you want to share.
Well, I am super excited, of course, because I read this book by John Alexander called Citizens, and he suggests that we consider citizen, the word citizen, as a verb,
Mm,
um, and to really, to move us into action. What does it really mean to move away from consumerism?
mhm.
Because we are at a juncture where we've kind of outlived it, right?
Totally.
We
Hmm.
have consumed so many products and data, because that's the big one now, right? And the more data and things we consume, the less satisfied we are,
Mm,
right? The less happy we are, the less connected we are. And as a result, we're losing touch with our humanity that's connected to the elements, to the earth, to being a creative human. We were supposedly created in the image of the creator.
mm.
And that means we are to create.
Yeah.
And yet, what are we doing? We're consuming. We're
Yes.
not really creating, we're consuming.
Mhm,
So, he talks about bringing us to this point of awakening
mhm,
where we could learn to be humans of the planet, where
Mm-hmm.
we're not trying to consume the planet and there won't be any planet left.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're consuming the lungs of the earth. Look at what's happening to the Amazon, just to talk about nature. But
Mm-hmm.
we're also so busy consuming data that technology itself could burn out. Now, I'm not saying that buying a product is wrong or creating a product is wrong. I am suggesting that when it comes from an embodied experience of really knowing, do I need it?
Mm-hmm.
Does this support me as a human? Does it, is there a value in creating the relationship between me and the people who most matter to me?
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean to be a human? How am I to arrive in my humanness and offer that to my children and my grandchildren, my neighbors and my community?
Yes.
Because if I can't embody what that means in integrity, in
Mm-hmm.
character, in responsibility, able to respond
Mm-hmm.
in a way that is most creative and alive as a human, I have lost touch with humanness. I've
Mm-hmm.
lost touch with the essence, the soul essence of living inside form.
Mm-hmm.
I've lost that. Instead, I'm living inside data in the machine of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to bring all the juicy bits of my creativity and have it sink into the aliveness of my form and the
Mm-hmm.
essence of my emotion and the beauty of who I am as a soul
Right.
and the purpose of that. And that's more than consuming
Yes.
objects and data and information.
And status.
Yes, and wealth,
And
right?
wealth, right, and power, and all these
And
things that are
power.
on
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
external that, by the way, have a me, mine, and I,
Oh gosh.
paradigm that's all the lower three chakras,
Yeah,
FYI.
ego, 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 ego.
Right, totally. But if I do that, then you will like me more or deem me more credible or worthy because I haven't yet known how to give that to myself. In fact, I've never known. But I've tried all these brilliant adaptations and then they get a little more sophisticated as I get older. And I think that if I keep doing this, but a slightly different way or a bigger stage or whatever it is, then it'll really land. And it's like, it's just this elusive carrot that I see so many, and I have so much compassion because I was this just a few years back, that it's a trap. And yeah, the
Yeah.
invitation
Well,
is to come home to ourselves first. And I love what you're talking about, our family, our friends, our immediate neighbors. Like, who knows their neighbors? I do, but so few.
we're living on such a fast-paced, energy-based system right now. You
Mhm,
know, when you think about being plugged in to all of the energy systems, I mean, we're doing it right now. And yes, there's good things that allows us to connect to people all over the world. I have clients all over the world.
mhm,
I'm not saying this is bad. I want us to wake up, though, and recognize how much we are literally like a plug plugged into energy. And that
mhm.
energy system feeds fast, right? And data.
Yeah.
And all I'm saying is we need to unplug some so that we can be present in our physiology and connect that way. Really.
And so, what would that look like in practical, accessible terms?
Well, I believe that we've got to return to the earth. We
Yeah.
want to cultivate ritual,
Mhm,
but and I don't mean religion, but I do mean ritual. Light a candle,
mhm.
have 5 minutes of silence. Most people can't even do 1 minute of silence,
Well,
but
no,
five
because they
minutes of
start thinking
silence.
their thoughts, which is
Hmm,
why they stay
hmm,
so
hmm.
distracted.
Yeah, yeah. Go for a walk without putting something in your ear and
Or your
listening.
hand, just device free.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And then how does that show up inside relationships? Are you
Mm,
willing to do the really tough work of parenting teenagers, and having them turn off the electrical current in the house,
mhm.
like the current in the house?
Yeah, literally the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
getting
And have
present with
dinner.
them.
And have dinner. Have
Right.
dinner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a friend who, there's probably a few of them, so no one's going to think it's them in particular, but their children have two or three screens at
Mhm.
the dinner table. And I know you see this a lot.
I do.
And it's easy for the parent. Good. They're taken care of, right?
Yeah.
And so, so many of us are more checked out now than ever. And this is, I think, another reason why there are so many of us drawn to this work, because some of us have felt the invitation, if not the demand, that like, no, we can't keep doing that.
Mhm.
And it's almost for, I don't know, is it for humanity to prevail in the origin form of, the soul into form and staying the organic, natural, human that Greg Braden speaks about, and honoring the earth, Mother Earth. I just came into this relationship with Mother Earth. I mean, I'd always say I've been a nature junkie, just deep reverence and commune with many trees, specifically oaks and pines. I didn't know that oaks were the king of trees until recently, but tree energy medicine has been really big for me. But lately, it's like singing my prayers, right, to the earth, offering offerings, and it just be a blessing, gratitude, just a drink of living water, or, it doesn't have to be elaborate, but it's just even connecting, like when you walk outside, like, thank you, and rubbing our hands together and sending a prayer out to the backyard when you wake up, or sun gazing, or something that would connect us to something beyond a device.
Yes, a lot of my work is to work with individuals who don't know how to make these changes because we can talk about this, but you probably didn't start out knowing what to do. I didn't know what to do in the beginning. It does sometimes mean we need support on how
Yes.
to make these changes because
Mhm.
it feels awkward, and certainly the teens don't like it. And yet it means being willing to elder the younger. I'm turning 70 in 2 weeks, and what I think about is how valuable it is and what an honor it is for me to elder the
Mm.
younger, to elder parents who are parenting or grandparents who are parenting. There's several generations. And we need elders to step up. We need people who are willing to speak and say, come back to just sitting and having a relationship. And let me tell you about my day. And calling the grandparent and seeing how they are, or
Mm.
having dinner and having everybody help make the dinner and
Mm.
slowing down. We really, as a culture, are living in such a fast pace
Mm.
that we have forgotten what it means to slow down, and we get uncomfortable with it. We do, especially in the beginning. So your listeners may not know how to apply this. And I would say you just do it one step at a time, just a
Yeah.
bit at a time.
You're bringing up a really good point, because I don't think I'm that far along. I mean, I'm still very new on this path, and maybe I'll always feel that way because the deeper you go, the freer you get, and you realize I just want to keep going deeper. But it was about 4 years and a few months ago that I let go of the TV and all of my, shows, including news stations that I actually thought was the news, and and then I was starting to watch stuff on YouTube. That's where I started with a couple of spiritual teachers that I still really respect and have become friends. But when I would first try to tune into their content, there's no way, by the way, I could have been doing your work 4 years ago. This took layers, right? That
Yes.
was for me. And so I was used to like Housewives of New York. That was what I zoned out to while I was drinking a bottle of wine and ate a, large pizza that was delivered. And then I'd go out back and smoke cigarettes because that's how I took care of myself. And everyone that listens to this show knows my story. I'm really proud that I'm not doing those things, but it took time. And so when I would try to watch a YouTube video, I'd be like, what is he saying? And
Yeah.
it would sound boring. And I'm like, this is like not for me. The gene keys, not for me, boring. And it's because I hadn't yet slowed down enough to be able to be present,
Yep. Yep.
to receive, to comprehend, to absorb. And that was just the external. So imagine what happens when we continue to deepen and we continue to go with that pace, which is the pace of God, the pace of nature. And now we can actually begin to hear what's happening inside our own being.
Mhm.
And I think because I had slowed down enough, but yet everything was getting loud inside, that's what drew me to this work, right?
It's really a challenge in the beginning. I will speak for myself. I will tell you that I'm a very driven person. I'm successful because I work at it,
Yep.
and I work long hours, and I still work long hours, but I take breaks in between now. But I still work long hours because I love it. I know it's part of my nature, and I have had to learn the art of slowing down and being more present. And it's still a process for me.
Mhm.
It's not something that I feel like I've landed on, perfection here. Not at all. So I really want your listeners to know that even little steps into the discomfort of slowing down is the beginning of the process. Just little steps. I was talking to one of my families in New York last week about, what else could she do for her 8-year-old boy? And I said, well, we could talk about what does it mean to become a man?
Oh, wow.
And at 8, if he thinks what it means is to have more and more things and to build a resume for college, then he's consuming what the culture has told him it means to be a man. What if you taught him how to build a fire
Mm,
outside?
mm,
What if you began to read aloud stories,
mm,
legends, and fables that have lessons?
mm.
What if you taught him how to make knots in a rope and how to use a rope if he was, in trouble and needed it to help somebody? What if you began to bring him back into connection with what it means to have some purpose in his gender role, whatever that is? But it's more than just consuming information.
Yeah.
Right? It is. It's got to be more than soccer and AP exams.
Hmm.
It's got to be. Otherwise, he's going to game because the gaming industry is teaching him what it means to be a man right now.
Right.
That's where he's getting his information. And what I want to see us do in our 40s and 50s is be sure that the young have another story,
Yeah.
that they do have intensity, that they do have right and wrong, but that comes from understanding what it means to be in human relationships,
Hmm.
and that has a connection to service and to honor and to integrity and to character and to values. We aren't giving that to them. We're giving them games to find the answers to that.
What about things like the education system?
Oh,
Because,
don't get me started.
well,
I
I have
was
never
teaching.
even heard your thoughts on this because I'm a part of a community here. And while I don't have children in this life, most of my friends do, and they've all homeschooled and they have bright, present, smart, multiple languages, multiple musical instruments, know the actual original Constitution. I mean, it's remarkable. And I'm not exaggerating here. And one 16 and just got his pilot's license. It's just like, it's really incredible. And I've never seen this. They're not checked out when you come over. They're not on their phones. They know how to shoot a bow and arrow. They light fires like through sticks. Like, so they're literally, I know this is rare, but I'm seeing
Rare.
more and more of that show up in my field. So if it's showing up in my field, a girl who lived in LA for 33 years, then I know that it must be also other places, right?
Well, it started.
Hmm.
It's a movement that has begun for sure. I think the beginning of that was the reminder that we need rites of passage. We need the red tent gatherings for the girls. We
Yeah,
really need the rite of passage for a boy as to, the hunter gatherer, the what does it mean to have status in a group and how do you build structure and military and religion used to give it to us.
right.
Well, how else can we give it to them without needing to go to war or tell them the God that they need to worship? Could we give those same underpinning core values to our youth? Yes, we can. And one of the best ways to do that is through ritual and discipline, the discipline of martial arts,
Mhm.
the discipline of the body, of working out. That's one way. Certainly the discipline of breath work, right? There's lots of ways. I mean, you can do it within religion. You can do it within, military. I mean, those are options for men. But what it really comes down to is how do we help them form who they can become
Mhm.
as humans that are connected to each other
Mhm.
and to values that matter beyond consumption, beyond consuming data and status and wealth. How else can they arrive in adulthood?
Mhm.
That's character building. That's integrity. That's service. That's responsibility. That's, honoring a soul journey. And very, very few families that send their kids to public school have options to do some of this.
Mhm.
You're talking about a select few who have made the choice to do that in a homeschool setting.
Fair.
But I work with a ton of people who are still really a part of the culture
Mhm.
and they're disappointed with the culture. They're disappointed with what they have in the public setting, right? Or they're sending them to private schools that are building their resume at age 5.
I know.
Okay, that's consumerism on steroids.
Right. That's like, ooh,
I
yes.
mean, it is. You're stuffing their minds through things, but not giving them experiences. The way we learn and grow is through the experience, not just stuffing a mind through with data.
What are some examples of a couple of rituals that you could offer our listeners, either for grown women, grown men, or the younger ones? Because we have a mixed bag. Our audience, as you probably know, is women, mostly 40 to about 65. 99.9% are is that. But
Well,
they've got granddaughters and
I was just going to
grandsons.
say,
Exactly.
yeah, 'cause I was going to say,
Yeah.
and they also might have a spouse or a best friend.
And they might.
Okay. And if they're all alone, I am. I'm alone now.
Hmm.
Okay. So a ritual is fire, water, earth, air, spirit.
Hmm.
So if you have a candle and you light it, you have fire, right? If you have a bowl of water and you take your hand and you spritz it in the room, you have water. You have earth with a rock that you've picked up, or a couple of them, right? You have spirit because you have breath. You
Hmm.
have ruach, just breath. Yeah. Sit, be still. Invite the essence of your whole being to be present with in a moment that creates sacred space and holy ground.
Hmm.
And in that rich moment,
Hmm.
wait for what arrives and breathe it in.
Hmm.
Take it in.
Hmm.
And see what happens in you as you receive
Hmm.
the silence
Hmm.
rather than asking for something.
Oh, that's really good. Receive the silence rather than asking for anything.
Yeah. And teach your children and grandchildren. When I taught in the Waldorf school, well, even when I taught in public school, I would do this. I wasn't supposed to, but I did. I would start every lesson with the lights off
Hmm.
and with silence, and I'd wait until they figured out that I was waiting. And we would have lots of silence. It's how I put my children to bed. We
Hmm.
would out in the lights now, all the lights now. We would out in them in the house. I'd have a candle And then we would go from one person's bedroom to the next with a candle, and we would invite silence and darkness and light and, a little bit of water or oil on the forehead
Mm,
and ask them to take in the sacredness of the essence between us.
mm,
Teach them to
mm,
become aware of sacredness. What is holy out of the ordinary?
mm, mm,
Bring the ordinary into the moment and make it extraordinary.
mm.
That's ritual.
I heard Dr. Mark Gaffney once be asked on a podcast, "What is God?" And he said, "Infinite intimacy." And what you just described felt like God, felt like infinite intimacy. And to get a child, much less an adult, present to the sacredness between us, that's infinite intimacy.
Yes, it is. And we need more of it in our world.
We do.
We do. It allows us to know what what the spark of life is in the womb and when we pass from life to death. Because both places hold infinite mystery.
Mm, and so much magic.
Yes.
Oh, so much magic. I don't know if I've ever been bored a day in my life. I mean, I just haven't, nor have I ever met a stranger, but that's me. But it's so much of more of what I would hope to, yeah, co-create and to bring in now that I have more present awareness with myself. Yeah, it's magic, especially in women's circles or,
Mhm.
these types of rooms that a lot of us are finding ourselves drawn to these days. It's learning how to create or to even become aware of that sacredness between us, that intimacy, and then what that could ripple out into. And that's being, I think, a good citizen. That's being a creator.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, we even do that in our coupleships, right? When we slow down enough to be silent in the mystery before we jump into the excitement of an orgasm. If we
Mm-hmm.
started foreplay with mystery
Mm-hmm.
instead of already knowing everything about the other person,
Mm-hmm.
on these dating apps, all this stuff, then you meet, you've already done the foreplay, and then you're supposed to just jump to it. We've lost the mystery of sacredness.
Mm-hmm.
And when we slow down enough to really be present with that, it awakens, oh, it's like it tantalizes the sensation of our aliveness.
Mm-hmm.
And in that juicy aliveness, there's so much to connect us to.
Mm-hmm.
And then that gets shared. And that's tantalizing. Yeah?
Presence. That is the most
Yeah.
attractive, seductive thing to me is presence.
Absolutely.
Also,
Absolutely.
aliveness is presence.
Yes, yes, yes. It's juicy. It's
Yes,
juicy.
so good. Oh,
And we've lost that because children have that when they're young. And then we lose it when we're older because we're all in our heads and in all of the thoughts and trying to prove ourselves and yet.
yeah. So it sounds to me then the way to come back to that, to reclaim that, is to slow down and to begin to get present to our lives, to the moment, to our bodies.
And create ritual.
And create ritual. Yeah, that's a big theme that I'm hearing here. And it's no wonder that like I love my retreats so much. I only offer usually 2 a year, but it's like it's so sacred, right? Just to be in ritual for 4 days with the women who end up being magnetized. But we can do that every day in our lives. You're giving me so many ideas to guide and consumer to creator. Like wow, we've just completely opened up a whole new paradigm of what we can create and also what we can also be mindful of not consuming.
Mhm.
So thank you for such a rich, alive conversation. As we begin to wrap, I'm curious, is there anything that you feel called to share or wish you had been asked?
Hmm. Oh, so many things. We'll have to do it again. I think, one thing I would leave you with is as people are struggling with a lot of grief and anger in the world and frustration with what's happening, I want to remind folks that things have to dismantle before something new gets born. We actually have a death before we have a birth. We have endings before beginnings. We don't actually start with beginnings, in a sense, in a sense. If you hang with me with the metaphor, we leave a constricted place of the womb and we are born. When we're born, we're ending our time in the womb. When we pass this life and we end, we leave the body and we are born to something new. And so we as a culture have to be willing to dismantle all the systems that no longer serve us, all the ways in which we have tried to build our culture. That has to dismantle before the new can really be formed. So when we think about letting go of consumerism so that we can create something new, we're going to go through discomfort. And we want to build our window of tolerance so that we can tolerate the discomfort in order for this new to awaken and to arrive. So it really means getting comfortable with discomfort.
Okay, so now you've just opened up a new little thread, so we're not quite finished. And that is, this is what I have been wanting to have a conversation about for so long, which is that anything that we're seeing on the external, right? And however we are reacting to that or what our relationship with that is, whether we are aligned or upset or, you know, burdened by or panicked by, there's a resonance within. And so, as we're watching the external deconstruct, it's an invitation, if not demand, which was my journey that I noticed, to go and look what needs to be purified within, what no longer serves, that's also a structure, an identity, an ego, right? All of this. And so this has been my journey of the last few years, and I know we're just beginning. And it's like, yeah, so I don't know if there's a question there, but I feel like you want to say something. So what can you add there? Because I think that's where people are feeling like they're in a crisis. They think they need to go and do something on the external when the invitation is what's happening here first, inside.
Absolutely. 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 As culture changes, right? It's changing shape.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We want to sit with self so that we can just shift our shape, which happens in death. We just change our shape, right?
Right.
So we want to allow the things that are no longer serving us to, you know, dismantle,
Mm-hmm.
right? Honestly, if we don't come home to the self and begin to really question, live in the question, not the answers. For me, I mean, questions are way more important than answers because answers are fixed and they take you to an end point. Inquiry helps us to continue to be curious,
What are
right?
some questions that are of like inquiry? Some examples.
Um, what is it that draws my life force forward.
Mm,
And inside of me, what no longer is working, that
mm,
I've tried so hard to make happen and it no longer working. If I let go, what else is there?
mm. Whew.
Okay.
That's the consuming to creator.
Correct. Because a lot of the people will tell me, I'm too afraid to let go of what I know. It's familiar. If
Right.
I let go, I don't know what is left.
Right.
Maybe there's nothing left. And I'll be like, oh, hell yeah. That's great because if there's nothing left, you have room to create. But you have no
Hmm.
room to create if you think that you've already created it.
Right.
If it's all said and done, then there's no room to create.
Hmm.
And so I want to get really curious about, can I sit with the silence?
Mm.
Can I manage the discomfort of I don't know?
Mhm.
Because the moment I sit with I don't know, I feel disorganized. And that's the recipe that I want. Because the
Yeah.
moment I'm disorganized, I know I'm ready for change.
Right.
When things are disorganized, everything's falling apart. And that allows me to create the space to then find what I want to bring together to form the new. But I can't create the new until I've got all of the parts just, dismantled.
I love that. It's like, and if I think of that for myself as an image, it's like the density of the layers and the patterns, right? And the programming and the protective modalities, whether that's the escapism and the various iterations, and it's all intertangled, right? Entangled. But like I can break it loose. And this is the dismantling, and then a little more light cracks in, and then you're like, oh, and it can feel uncomfortable because we no longer are in that protected environment that we think is for us, that keeps us safe and we have control over. But it's not our life force and the possibility that is calling us forward. If we get a little bit curious and a little bit courageous, right? And then we can't imagine a life another way once we start to get curious about that, because then we see so much is waiting for us inside the light. And
Yeah,
that's
we
the
get to
resonance.
reorganize. We get to reorganize.
Yes. But it can be terrifying. In the beginning, I'm not going to lie, it can. But it's only from the perspective of not knowing what is waiting on the other side. And so therein lies, I think, the essential need for ritual, because that allows us to slow down and get curious about even possibility.
I so agree.
Yeah,
Agree. That's the beginning. That really is the beginning,
that
is
is
to
the beginning.
find the mystery and the curiosity to be present with it, with the unknown, and even with the fear of I don't know what's next.
Especially the fear.
Mhm.
I was so afraid to feel everything since I was two. And and now that I'm feeling everything, it's making me more resilient. It's creating more capacity, and I'm less afraid about anything on the external. It's like whatever, like this life has been great. If this is over, I'll go on to the next one. Like it's literally shifting so much in ways that I couldn't have imagined. And I want to be clear, I'd like to stay and continue this amazing life for as long as I'm meant to. But yeah, it's been quite a journey. Well, thank you for just a beautiful conversation. In
That's
many
been,
ways, it feels like a session. Like there's so much gold here, and yet just such a wealth of wisdom that just pours out of you. So thank you for bringing us your sacredness today.
oh, thank you for having me. It's been fun to have the conversation. I love it.
Yeah. Where's the best way for people to connect with you if they feel called?
My website, which is kate-appleton.com.
Okay, great. We'll make sure that we link that in the show resources. Also, want to say that you'll be leading attachment in somatics that picks up in February. I cannot recommend this highly enough for anyone. Doesn't matter if you're a professional, stay-at-home mom, like all of it. This, I think, is at the basis of like every functional human being, especially in these times. And if you use my name, I'll leave the code actually. Now that I'm thinking about this, you can even receive, I think, a $500 discount. I have recommended this training to everyone that will listen. It is so good. And you're the teacher along with your son. And that dynamic is also so beautiful to watch the two of you who've worked through so much share from your perspective of the elder and the son, building his kingdom and him really honoring you and vice versa. And just each of you brings something so unique and so skilled to that program experience. It's world class. So thank
Thank
you
you.
also. You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Mm. Well, Miss Kate, thank you for
Thank
today.
you. Thank you. It's been wonderful. Thank you.